went to the queen to tell her her subjects had no bread. Do you know what she said?
Let them eat cake.
Who took the bomb?
We're getting screwed, man. Every time we turn around, we're getting screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background with the kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of The Peasant's Perspective. You might have noticed we were just a moment late this morning. That's because we had this great idea. We were like, hey, what can we do to improve the show and make it better? I was like, when I read an article, maybe we could do like a split screen, not a picture-in-picture, but an actual split screen.
Seems like a simple thing.
Yeah, seems totally simple. Every podcast does that. A split screen, how complicated can it be? Apparently, it's a little more complicated than you think. So that's
it's probably not.
Yeah, as we were playing around, and then we hit the, hey, we have to stream in a couple minutes. Let's abandon what we're doing and go back to the original settings. Our cameras were all zoomed in. We were basically looking at the tip of my nose. We couldn't figure out how to reset the camera.
It was going to be great.
It was going to be awesome. You were going to get the whole show right here with me talking like this. So anyways, Mata Ezel, good morning. Brazer, man, there's Azors. Good morning from Boise. Carlitos, good morning, everyone. Ponyboy, good morning. John Atakis, good morning. I feel like my mic somehow through our settings is now super hot. Is it?
It's only really hot when you're right on it. And if you get about 6 inches away, you start to bleed away like that.
About right here?
Yeah.
Something like that? Okay. All right. So in very, very sad news yesterday, our dear friend Scott Adams passed away. I thought he was in his mid-70s. I guess he was only 68 years old.
Yep.
When I first started listening to Scott Adams, he was playing tennis every day. He was pretty active. He was saying he was kind of in the, not the best shape of his life, but, the best shape of his life for a 60-plus-year-old. And he took the vaccines, and, here we are 4 years later, and he's dead of a very accelerated cancer. So very, very sad. Cancer happens to lots of people. So you can't just be on an individual level. Oh, that's because of the vaccine. But I think even him in his private conversations with people was kind of saying, I might have gotten the turbo cancer. So, who knows? We'll see if he put out any written statements. He had a beautiful little thing that he wrote that was his last official statement. He turned himself over to Jesus Christ, said, I look forward to being in eternity with him. And any proof of my belief will be quickly satisfied when I wake up with him. And so that was kind of fun. And I've long since thought when Scott Adams finally stops doing his trademark signature at the beginning of his show, his simultaneous sip, I'm taking it. We're doing the simultaneous sip as a homage to someone who I considered a mentor and a guru, Scott Adams. So this morning, if you would join me, and we need to do this every morning. This needs to become like a show tradition. If you would join me for the simultaneous sip, I know why you're here. You're here for the simultaneous sip. All you need is a cup or a mug or a glass or a tankard, a chalice or a stein, a canteen, jug or flask, a vessel of any kind. Fill it with your favorite liquid. I like coffee. And join me now for the unparalleled pleasure, the dopamine hit of the day, the thing that makes everything better, the simultaneous sip. That's good. All right. So we have toasted Scott Adams. May you rest in peace with our Heavenly Father, and we'll carry on the mission without you. So yesterday, a lot of stuff happened in the news. It was kind of an interesting day. It's a lot of like, I don't know. I've been watching the news for 20 years as an adult, right? And every week you have something that's pretty big in the news cycle. And every now and then you'll have a couple stories that stack up. Usually there's like the intended narrative that's kind of building on itself and the Hegelian dialectic leading us down a path to our destruction. But then you'll have like a mass shooting or something that comes out of nowhere, or
an opportunity.
A hurricane might actually put some of those narrative stories on the back burner, right? But during Trump's presidency, really the last 10 years, there are weeks that feels like there's decades worth of news. And this year, specifically 2025, and I guess now 2026, this last year since Donald Trump's been in office, it's been nonstop. I mean, every day there's like, it's coming from the left and the right. The news is super active. Obviously, that drives a lot of people crazy, which is totally fine. Okay? We take a look at it. We just want to see it. We want to see it for what it is. We want to understand the narratives as they're coming to us. And we want to understand these people that are our betters, right? Our elites, the people who run this place and make the rules that we have to follow. This is RFK, and he did an interview with Katie Miller. Now, it's interesting to know who Katie Miller is. When I say that name, does it ring any bells to you at all?
No.
So Katie Miller is Kash Patel's girlfriend. This is the country music star that nobody's ever heard, that she now has a highly successful podcast. This is one of those perfect examples of inside access. Katie Miller should not be interviewing RFK or any of the people she interviews. She gets these interviews clearly because she's Kash's girlfriend. But she got an interview with Robert Kennedy Jr., and he had something funny to say that Dr. Oz said when they reviewed Donald Trump's medical records. Oh, we were so close.
I was saying this morning, we don't have to prove that we're not AI, but we still aren't.
Self-evidence. Yes, it is self-evident. Okay, here we go.
I mean, he's incredible health. Dr. Oz looked at his medical records and said he's got the highest testosterone level that he's ever seen for an individual over 70 years old. I know the president will be happy that I repeat that.
So he's got the highest testosterone levels of anyone over 70 years old. I believe it. I mean, look at this guy. Can you tell me that does not look like a high testosterone old man? 2023, the mugshot, fight, assassination attempt, his inauguration photo. And this is Donald Trump yesterday. Did you see this by any chance?
No.
So what happened yesterday was Donald Trump visited the Ford factory in Michigan, and lots of great news come out of there. We're not going to really play any clips.
I thought it was a fake image.
No. So Donald Trump tours the Ford factory yesterday, gives some great speech. Ford manufacturer says we're, running 24 hours a day, 6 days a week. We're building all of our cars here in the United States. We're building 2 new trucks, a small car. We're opening a new factory. Tariffs. They're working.
Yay.
It's great cheerleading for Donald Trump's economic agenda. Also, yesterday, inflation numbers came out. They're low. No surprise there. Turns out only Donald Trump knows how to run an economy. All those PhDs over at the Federal Reserve, they don't do jack. Okay, so Donald Trump is at the Ford factory, and of course, there's a heckler down on the factory floor, and he's yelling up at Donald Trump, calling him a pedophile protector.
Oh, boy.
So this is the image of Donald Trump waving at this license. So our high testosterone president gave a factory worker protector the middle zoomed in version of it.
What is all that noise?
This is really what happened here.
Oh,
you're gonna need the noise. It's part of the video. Mostly filled of boomers plus. That might not be the most attractive thing.
No.
But trust me, the Zoomerwaffen, the guys that are like, burn it down. I want your home equity. They love that stuff. And especially the black community loves that stuff. They get way into that thug life kind of thing.
Right.
So Donald Trump doing that to most people, we kind of grow up with the politicians kissing babies and shaking hands. And
what's the artist's name that sings that song?
Oh, I don't know. DMX or something like that.
All right.
Anyways, that is hilarious. So I'm sure there's going to be lots of people that are offended. Donald Trump flipped someone off. Dude, the guy's got the highest testosterone of anybody over 70 you've ever
I don't think anybody's going to be offended by that.
It's pretty fun. RFK also talked about Donald Trump's diet. Now, Donald Trump gets a lot of crap about his diet, right? He's a big man, 6'3". Yeah, Diet Coke, aspartame poisoning. Also another
Well, that was my simultaneous sip this morning.
So Donald Trump is known for being a big guy, right? He's big. A lot of people thought that he's fat over the years, and he's a well-built man. I don't know how else to say it. I love looking back at his pictures of like the 70s and 80s when he's walking around with all these girls and he's got his like Ferrari and he's in
his
tall,
tight suit,
but he's got his belt at his belly button. Yeah. And he's got a little little muffin top over it. And he's a billionaire. He's like, it's not a problem for me. Look at all these women.
Yeah, he don't care.
Yeah, he don't care. But Katie Miller asked RFK about Trump's diet.
Who has the most unhinged eating habits?
The president. The interesting thing about the president is that eats really bad food, which is McDonald's, and then, candy and Diet Coke. But he drinks the Diet Coke all times. He has the constitution of a deity. I don't know how he's alive, but he is. And he's at Mar-a-Lago. He says that the only time that he eats the junk food is when he's on the road, and he wants to eat food from big corporations because he trusts it. He doesn't want to get sick when he's on the road. But when he's at Mar-a-Lago or at the White House, he's eating really good food. I think you get this, if you travel with him, you get this idea that he's just pumping himself full of poison all day long. And
trying to kill himself.
Walking around, much less being the most energetic person, any of us have ever met.
He's the most energetic person we've ever met. He has the constitution of a deity. He's eating junk food all day long and runs around in circles.
Gotta fuel that testosterone.
Susie Wiles said that Donald Trump was a high testosterone, or a highly addictive person, right? He was like working with an alcoholic. She talked about her dad being an alcoholic. Well, that personality trait, the personality trait that leads people to be alcoholics or workaholics or drug addicts or, sex addicts, it's often chasing the dopamine, right? That's what it is. You're trying to get that high, that dopamine high.
There's a drive.
There's a certain genetic type that translates to a personality type that your brain eats the dopamine faster than other individuals. So while someone gets let's get some type of satisfaction dopamine high, right? For one person, that might last 10, 20, 30 minutes, lots of satisfaction. For an addict, someone that has this genetic marker, all of that's gone. It's gone in 5 minutes, right? So then they're wanting to chase it again. Right. So that alcoholism, that's why you chase the drunkenness or you chase a high, right? So Donald Trump clearly has that alcoholic personality, but he's not an addict, right? He doesn't do drugs or alcohol or anything. So he finds his dopamine in making the deal and making some more money or doing whatever he puts his mind to.
He's a deal addict.
Our society needs these high functioning addicts, right? Because they're the ones who really drive the needle forward. Elon Musk probably qualifies for this as well. He probably gets no pleasure out of anything. He's like, I'm trying to make it to Mars, and anything shy of that is disappointment. Your brain is eating through the dopamine. High-level operators that are Navy SEALs, Green Berets, these guys often have these same personality traits. This is what allows one person under chaos to go into fight and flight mode and scared and stuff like that, while another person, all that adrenaline, your brain just eats through those chemicals. So Donald Trump clearly is one of those types of people, and he's completely unafraid to go on a total populist tear. Republicans are afraid of populism. They always have been, because it's a form of collectivism that they can't really control. Populism engages kind of the mob rule mentality, and it says what's good for the masses. Okay. So I personally feel like I'm a populist, but I'm an independent populist. I want things that are good for me specifically, and all of you guys can have the same set of rules to play with, right? That's like an independent populist. I don't know where Donald Trump falls on the populism spectrum, but Steve Bannon describes here Trump is on a tear with his populist policies this last week.
And the president's on a populist tear. He's dealing with the mortgage issue. He's dealing with the affordability of housing issue. He's getting into the big banks about capping the interest rates at 10%. He's all over full spectrum energy dominance, and particularly dealing with these data centers to make sure they can't come back on the grid and torch folks. He's all over. This is President Trump is on a populist tear right now for economics, and we love it. And there's even more to do, but we love what we're seeing so far.
Populism is extremely popular. Barack Obama ran on a populist ticket. Bill Clinton ran on a populist ticket. The era of big government is over and welfare reform. A lot of the stuff that Clinton pushed back in the 90s was supposed to be good for the people, didn't turn out to be. And we know that the Clintons were really good about having two sets of policies, one for the bankers and one for the TV cameras. But Barack Obama ran on a populist ticket. I mean, this is what Obamacare is. It's taking a crack at universal health care, which is a completely populist agenda, no matter where you're at. So Donald Trump coming in and absorbing all these populist agenda items, but then doing them in a Republican business-oriented sense way has made dramatic effects, and it's scaring the Democrats. The Democrats use these populist policies to create fodder, to create a buzz around whatever they're doing, but they rarely execute on them. And when they do, it's dumb stuff like free buses in New York. You know what I mean? Or free medical care for Somalis. I mean, it's not free medical care for me and my kids, or free child care for me and my kids. But if you're Somalian, we'll cover that. The Democrats are scared because Trump's economic policies are working and they're hitting all the populist buttons that they need to hit.
Blocking institutional investors from purchasing blocks of single family homes across the country to sort of loosen up the inventory numbers out there. And this goes to what Kevin O'Leary was just talking about, force big tech companies to pay higher electricity rates to cover the data centers. There's, basically a public mechanism for paying for power. And President Trump himself said, look, they have to pay their fair share of these huge AI and tech companies when it comes to the drain that they're putting on the energy.
So one of the things that Marjorie Taylor Greene has been barking about is affordability. Trump's not doing things for affordability and prices of healthcare, price of electronics. Well, Trump has been, we're going to pay the people, not the insurance companies. It's kind of playing a game of chicken with the Democrats on that one, as far as the tax subsidies and stuff like that. But when it comes to the electricity, this was another one that was brewing. If you're up in, New York, your electricity prices are going up because some data center came online. So Trump is simply looking at the data centers and he's like, listen, for you guys to double your electric cost is like a small line item on your bill. But if I don't lower the cost for the people in your community, they're going to make me run you out of town. You see what I'm saying? So suck up the extra electricity cost. Brilliant. What a great populist solution. It's a little communist, but hey, the buses are going to be free regardless.
Right. A couple others with around housing, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, also in the mix there. Great to have you both with us. John, your reaction to the speech and to these actions, clearly this is
So Trump is really going on it. And Trump, in his speech at the Ford factory, he talked about this. And again, this is that testosterone injected American, red-blooded American. When he says something like this, contrast this with Barack Obama's speech in a similar spot where he goes, oh, you're some business and you think you're successful? Well, you didn't build that. You didn't do it on your own, right? Do you remember this speech? So contrast this with that.
As we liberate our country from this cultural scourge and the plague of corruption and fraud, we'll rediscover the natural energy and native spirit that truly makes America great again, like we're doing with Detroit and Michigan. If we get rid of fraud and do our job properly on the trillions that are being extorted out of our country from corrupt and incompetent governors like Gavin Newsom, J.B. Pritzker, and Tim Walz, we will very soon have a balanced budget, and that's the kind of money that we're talking about. We're talking about massive amounts of money. Our country wasn't built by people who tried to lie and cheat and scam their way to success. It was built by legends like Henry Ford, Henry Dow, Thomas Edison, the Kellogg brothers, Alfred P. Sloan, the founder of General Motors, men who lifted up American workers and strengthened our nation beyond even belief. And we're doing the same exact thing right now. I think we're doing it even better. This is the fierce spirit of patriotic free enterprise that we're now unleashing. Once again, we are unleashing it like maybe never before.
It is really inspirational. And he's dead right there, right? When Obama says you didn't build that, the people who built it were Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, you know what I mean? And these people who wanted to continue on their legacies to the next generation, but right when they hit the peak of their power and the peak of their influence, Federal Reserve Act, IRS, now we're all in bondage, death taxes, forcing every generation to build their wealth from scratch again, turning over families' wealth to the state to be redistributed, taking your corporations public. The best thing you can do in America is sell your business to the public, right? So that all kind of ties in here where Donald Trump is really a man of the people. Not only is he a high testosterone, red-blooded American, married 4 times and owned a Miss Universe pageant, right? But he's also willing to do the hard things. He's willing to take on the fights and the challenges that other politicians have shirked away from. He's willing to take on Iran, Cuba, Venezuela, Russia, China, all simultaneously, while telling Canada, our greatest ally, to stuff it with 150% tariffs on milk. You know what I mean? He's able to do it all. He's even taking on the Federal Reserve. And in fact, he understands something that I preach nonstop over at 1776live.us. Please go to 1776live.us and register for the Ignite presentation.
Shameless plug.
Yep, don't forget that. Shameless plug. But he also understands another core concept of our economics, and that is money's not real. Wouldn't the greatest populist president ever maybe want to do something like, I don't know, pay off the national debt and take the yoke of financial debt bondage off the American people? Maybe Trump could do it.
They think it's good. Who knows? Maybe we'll pay off our $35 trillion, hand them a little crypto check, right? We'll hand them a little Bitcoin and wipe out our $35 trillion. They think it's good.
Why not? Why not just wipe out our national debt? I mean, while we're at it, let's make the buses free too. You know what I mean? Guys, this is absolutely awesome. Now, a lot of people accuse Donald Trump and his administration of having no humor, not being funny, and most of all, not being compassionate or empathetic. But that's just not true. Lots of members of Trump's cabinet are not only funny, but they're actually empathetic too.
I love this cabinet. I think the funniest guy in the cabinet is Marco. And but all of them are entertaining to be around.
We're now like 5 for 5 on every single person saying Marco's their favorite. We have yet to have one cabinet secretary on this show.
You've had 5 cabinet secretaries on your show. You have like 19 episodes, Katie Miller.
What the heck?
Hello?
Hey.
I need a better booker. Cash.
What episode are we on?
Cash, I'll be your boyfriend. I'm looking for what was that video we played a week or two ago? I'm looking for a straight husband.
Oh.
Listen, I just need access to your Rolodex with people for the show.
No, who says anybody but Marco?
He's the funniest for sure.
What's the funniest joke he's told you?
Oh boy.
Or prank he's
He
pulled?
says something funny every cabinet meeting. He says something that puts people in hysterics. I remember one time when Elon was talking about, he said there's 114, or he said there's 240,000 people that Doge had found who were over 114 years old who were collecting unemployment. And Marco said, well, in their defense, it's hard getting a job after you're 114. Well, that's the kind of thing that you hear from.
So not only are they funny, but they're also very compassionate because Marco is right. It's hard to get a job over 114.
I just had this vision that our entire political apparatus and all the people it's just like a bigger version it's a grown-up version of the Sandlot.
Yeah, it is. It's
and
like
Marco, that image of Marco Rubio telling jokes in the cabinet meeting was just like one of the kids on the Sandlot.
Well, in fairness, it is hard to get a job after 114. So don't ever accuse Republicans or Donald Trump's cabinet of not being empathetic. Even Marco knows it's hard to work after 114. Okay, so this is, I can't even remember her name here. This is Congresswoman Representative Dexter from Oregon. So she, after this horrible incident where these Tren de Agua gang members and a prostitute, it's Tren de Agua gang members, one of which was a prostitute, rammed their vehicle into the ICE officer, like totaled the vehicle. I mean, it wasn't a little bump and ding and go. It was like that car didn't drive away from there. It was completely totaled. Okay. Wow. So those are the people that the ICE officers took a shot at and put into the hospital. Well, this representative made a statement before we knew the identity of the victims being the Tren de Agua members. The victim was the ICE officer.
Oh, boy.
Okay. So she was confronted on the Capitol steps. Now, keep in mind, one of the talking points for the left is to always try to draw on some string of empathy. Not real empathy like Marco Rubio has for people trying to get a job after.
Right. Feigned empathy. Fake
empathy, which, by the way, they're both fake because there's nobody over to 114 trying to get a job, right? That's the point. It's like a completely false premise. You've got empathy for people that don't exist.
Yeah.
So here, I'm going to show you how this congresswoman has empathy for a community that doesn't exist and shouldn't be electing her.
Congresswoman Bill Malugin with Fox News. Quick question. Why didn't you wait for any facts to come out on the Portland Border Patrol shooting before you put your statement out?
I did not make a statement about the...
You did. It's on Twitter.
No, I made a statement. I did not say anything about whether or not those folks were rightfully having...
You said ICE is terrorizing the community. It wasn't ICE, it was Border Patrol. And you said
My question for you is, did they follow due process? And the answer is no. Those folks were shot before they had...
Those folks were 2 Venezuelan gang members who both local police and police in Portland say they were.
I met with the police chief, and it is not that clear. So alleged is not due process.
So do you consider those alleged Tren de Aragua gang members?
First of all, the due process is pull over and show me your ID. And then the due process after you try to use your car to ram into a law enforcement officer is usually to get shot, right?
Yeah, I don't like it how they're always like turn this language into alleged so that there's inaction. There's no action.
Yeah. Well, there's no due process. Well, these are alleged gang members. Well, alleging they're gang members is part of the due process to find out if they are gang members.
Yeah.
At some point, we have to make an allegation to get the party started. Got it? So the word salad here, the word play, well, they're alleged. That means that they're not totally gang members. Pay attention. Bullet points, talking points, snapshots, and sound bites. She is rattling off a couple sound bites that we hear over and over again. Okay. Alleged is not convicted. They need due process. This ubiquitous, big, like, what are you talking about? Like, before you can arrest me or pull me over, you've got to get me in front of a judge.
Right. You have to know all the answers and have a conviction before you can even say anything.
Yeah, I don't think so.
To be your neighbors, you said we got to show up for our neighbors.
We have to show up for our community, and our community is feeling terrorized right now. They are outraged that people are being shot without having any detainment or due process in the court of law.
Did you see the photos DOJ put out of the Ram Border Patrol vehicle almost totaled?
I have seen photos, sir, and I have nothing to say about these two people and whether or not they have criminal history or other things to be detained. That is not the issue. The issue is that we are not following due process. Our law enforcement should be accountable to the law.
Last question, we'll let you go.
Get
You
out.
For an end to all
Get
immigration
out.
operations in Portland,
Man,
all
I'm
ICE
tired of these
operations.
people.
Do you still stand by that, given the fact that these do appear to be criminal, illegal alien gang members?
Again, sir, alleged
you're
is
not a leader.
Being
Criminal, illegal alien gang members.
Again, sir, alleged is not being prosecuted in the court of law and having a jury find that that's true.
So we can't call them gang members until we convict them on gang charges, but you don't get charged with being a member of TDA because that would be against your free association. You get charged for the things you do because you're a member of TDA. Does that make sense? I can join TDA. I'll probably get surveilled. I'll get spied on because I'm part of a terrorist organization. But if I don't commit a crime, I'm unlikely to be arrested. So when she says, well, alleged, it's not in a court of law. What opportunity is there for a court of law when they put it in gear and rammed it into an ICE officer?
Yeah.
You know, oh, hey, you're an alleged criminal. No, you are a criminal. You tried to kill an ICE officer.
They have immigration violations that will be dealt with by an immigration judge. I stand by ICE needing to be
what the ICE officers were trying to do was take them to the judge. In order to do due process, you have to process the people, which means you got to get them
accountable to the law, and enforcement needs to be ceased until we can guarantee that there is accountability to the law. Thank you.
Okay, so we need to cease law enforcement until we can hold law enforcement accountable.
Right.
Okay.
Get out of office.
Our community is being terrorized. Who's your community? Who's electing you? What's going on here? What community are you protecting? Due process. Are we saying that every cop that gets shot on the side of the road when he pulls someone over? I mean, literally, there's hundreds of cops a year that on just totally random traffic stops get shot. Do we tell cops stop doing traffic stops because if you would just stop enforcing speed laws, you'd never get shot? That's not how this has ever worked. Okay, Ilhan Omar was on MS Now, and she says again, reiterating this talking point. Well, alleged is not convicted. Show me a conviction.
They have not been able to tell us what is the purpose for this search. They haven't been able to produce any evidence that they are finding people who are undocumented, who have committed crimes. Almost every single person that they have information and shared information with us has been someone that has already been adjudicated and was already in prison. And so there's no way to justify what they are doing. It is unleashing complete terror on the residents of Minnesota.
Okay. Yeah. She just said the quiet part out loud that refutes their entire argument.
Mm-hmm.
They have not been able to produce any documentation from us for people that have been arrested that did not already have criminal records and an adjudication for final removal. So they're not terrorizing the streets. They're not pulling over every brown person. they're targeting people who have orders of removal. She's saying, well, they haven't been able to produce people that committed fraud, right, that are here illegally because they all have some paperwork and have been adjudicated. It's the opposite, but it's that talking point. It's drawing on that empathy of, no due process, something's not right. Now, everything that was going on in Minnesota was being headed by the United States attorney up there. And the United States attorney last week was, Tim Walz was telling the United States attorney that he needed to quit and resign because he was horrible and corrupt. And, for most of us, we were just like, yeah, right, Tim Walz, you look like the horrible, corrupt one. But then yesterday, the federal prosecutor up in Minnesota just straight up resigned, kind of out of nowhere.
Wow.
And so this is a really bad look. Now, part of what happened here up in Minnesota was there was this Renee Good lady who was shot when she tried to ram the ICE agent. Well, her wife or partner or whatever, I don't know. Some people say they're married. They have the same last name, but then it looks like they never got married. They just changed names.
Yeah.
So anyways, doesn't matter. We'll call it spouse, common law, whatever. Can you have a common law lesbian marriage? I don't even know.
I don't think so.
We're going to talk about the transgender stuff in the Supreme Court at the end of the show. Okay. So the DOJ was apparently trying to go after her, right? Like this is provoked. You guys were part of this group that's targeting ICE. You might even be paid. So she just lost her best friend, spouse, lover, whatever. And now the DOJ's trying to come down on her. I can see how that's a bad look empathetically, but it doesn't really matter.
No.
Right. I mean, if you're assisting in murder, you're assisting in murder. So this is Guy Benson talking about how this is a bad look for the DOJ.
I'm afraid that it might be. And I think it's worth pointing out that just days ago, Tim Walz was attacking this guy and suggesting he should have been fired a long time ago over the fraud situation as he was flailing in that scandal, Walz that is. And then today with the resignation, Walz put out a tweet extolling him as a paragon of public service virtue. So I think that goes to the hypocrisy of the governor. But to your question, Brian, I think this is not good news for Minnesota taxpayers. This guy was hard charging on that issue. And it appears that what forced him out, what made him decide he didn't want to be there anymore, is, at least as far as I can tell with the facts that we currently have, overreach, in my opinion, by the Justice Department. The wife of the deceased woman has gone through something really, really traumatic. Her spouse has been shot dead. Now, I think, sadly, tragically, it was a clean shoot. I think that these were radical activists. I think there's no question about that. I fully support the DHS surge in Minnesota for a number of reasons. I've defended all of that. But to go a step further, I think, strategically, politics, optics, these things do matter in terms of public perception of all of it. If DOJ is pressuring these prosecutors to go harder after the bereaved wife, and it was a bridge too far, even for a prosecutor like this, I just feel like, unless there's some information that I don't have yet, that seems like an unforced error and a bad political calculation at the very least.
It feels like an unforced error, but do you really think a prosecutor would resign because he's going after someone who's got a sob story or a spouse that has a sob story?
No.
I don't buy it for 1 second. You know why? Because these prosecutors have ice that runs through their veins. These people on a daily screw people's lives up. These people on a daily lie about people.
There's definitely
and
something
misrepresent
impinging on
facts.
him.
I don't buy it for a second. Oh, I don't want to go after the lesbian spouse of a cop killer.
No.
I don't buy it for a second. Here's what I do know. The Somalis were willing to bribe a juror with cash. Here's what I do know. The Somalis are on a lot of videos threatening ICE officers, threatening politicians, threatening. I'm a little bit familiar with that culture because over the years I have dealt with a few of these Somali type negotiators, and it's kind of a zero-sum game working with them. I think this guy was threatened. I think this guy has a niece, a nephew, a son, a daughter, a wife, a friend, a brother, a mother, somebody that they got to that basically said, listen, man, the juice ain't worth the squeeze on this one.
Yeah.
So that's my opinion. And remember, the scale at which these people can destroy your life, slander you, not only can they literally assassinate you, but they can character assassinate you too as well, even in death. Do you remember Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the austere religious scholar at the helm of the Islamic State, ISIS?
Yes.
So look at this picture. Yeah, this is from the Washington Post, or actually, the Washington Post. Now, the media can just talking point you to death. This guy was a rapist. This guy was a murderer. This guy was a terrorist. There is nothing redeeming about Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. He kept, that one female
austere religious scholar.
Yes, after he was killed and died like a dog, begging for his life, as Donald Trump said. Right? They decided to call him an austere religious scholar.
He died like a dog.
He died like a dog. Contrast that with Scott Adams, who really dedicated his life to providing value for people, explaining things, helping people see through both the blue and the red veil to try to see common sense and truth, to dissect things by narrative. He used his training as a professional hypnosis to be able to help us see how sometimes politicians start to hypnotize us and things like that. And his death yesterday was celebrated like this. Scott Adams, disgraced. Gilbert Crater dies at 68.
Oh, freaking People magazine, you are disgraced for putting that up there. Frick.
They will call the Tren de Agua gang member and prostitute members of our community, our neighbors. You don't defend drunk drivers. You don't just defend tweaker meth heads that are stealing copper out of your house. You don't defend, these people. Why are you defending illegals? And it's not just that they're here without documentation, picking fruit, following all the laws. No. Ilhan Omar said it best. Everybody they're going after has orders of removal. They're not able to produce people that are not in that category. Okay, Donald Trump put everybody on notice in his speech yesterday at the Ford Motor Plant. Politicians, bureaucrats, everybody.
Last week, we announced that I'm creating a brand new division at the Department of Justice, a legal strike force led by a really tough, smart new attorney general for fraud. He's a fantastic young guy. He's so impassioned to do this properly. We intend to imprison any fraudster, politician, or public official involved in these sick plots to loot and pillage our country. Last week, we announced that I'm creating a brand new division at the
looting and plundering our country. They intend to put them in prison, and they will. Just ask Senator Mendez or Rob Blagojevich. You can go to jail even if you've been a governor, or heck, they even tried to put the president in jail. Scott Bessent was out in Minnesota, and he said the same thing. They're going to start in Minnesota, and they're going to spread.
I want to echo your statements because as I spend time here, it is good to be back in Minnesota, Minneapolis. I am hopeful too, because even though it is cold outside, sunshine is the best antiseptic. And we are going to clean this out. We are going to stop it. We are going to make recoveries. And as Jennifer said, we are going to get the money flowing back to people like her organization who help the children, seniors. So I am very hopeful that we will right the ship and that we will emanate out from Minnesota into the other 49 states and ferret out waste, fraud, and abuse. The GAO, the General Accounting Office, believes that there is between 300 and 600 billion of fraud that occurs via the U.S. government every year, around 10% of our spending, in between 1 and 2% of GDP. Last week, President Trump indicated that he would like to raise the defense budget by $500 billion. We could do that and make our nation more externally safe by having an internal audit of where this fraud and abuse is coming from. And I want to thank you for all your work you've done.
Yeah, so they're coming. It turns slowly. I was in prison with, quite a few people over the length of time that did PPE loan fraud. But there was one guy in particular, he did PPE and loan fraud. And, PPE loans came out in 2020. He got the loan. He overbilled or whatever for about 70 grand. And I think he got a 2-year sentence and stuff like that. Okay. So the government, starting in 2023, we started to see the first people go to prison for PPE loan fraud. Now, anybody who dealt with those loans, we got one as Absolute Earthworks, and we got like a $22,000 one. We did precisely what they needed. And we went through the whole process to get it forgiven at the end. So it was like done. But a lot of people overborrowed, and so then they created a loan now with the government. Now they have to pay the government back. A lot of people never intended to pay him back because they thought they were going to be free money.
Free money.
In fact, I know of a guy who used his PPE loan in Idaho to buy a Lamborghini. I'm not sure if he's in prison yet or not, but he had enough quote unquote payroll to really juice the government, and he was still working. So he was still generating revenue to pay the employees, and then he got like the extra I think he got about 400 grand total.
What, is he showing up to work and getting his tool bags out of his?
I know of him. I couldn't even name him. Okay. So Janine Pirro, just in D.C., prosecuted someone along these lines with the social services loan fraud. And this one was tied to the COVID relief funds.
Hi, everyone. It's Judge Janine. Today, my prosecutors got a conviction and a sentence of 33 months for Ruby Jane Corrado, who created the nonprofit Casa Ruby that's supposed to benefit LGBTQ at-risk community youth in the district. Unfortunately, she decided that she would take over $950,000 from a COVID relief program and economic loss program, and she pocketed that money for herself. She then fled to El Salvador. We were able to get her back from El Salvador as a result of the work of the Washington field office of the FBI. She is now required to pay back that almost $1 million, and she's going to serve 33 months in prison. I think this should be a message, a twofold message. Number one, we are going to protect the LGBTQ community, especially the at-risk youth. If you steal money from the government, you're going to.
I love how she threw that in there. We're going to protect the LGBT community by preventing lesbians like her from stealing from you. I love it. Yeah. Okay. So I just got a message from Jen, one of our great longtime loyal listeners from England, and she sent me a picture of her vessel for today's simultaneous sip. 7 a.m., good morning. 9 a.m., hydrate yourself. 11 a.m., you've got this. 9 p.m. or 1 p.m., no excuses. 3 p.m., keep drinking. 5 p.m., don't stop now. I don't know, a little bit more. Well done.
All done.
Good luck. That's a lot of sips. It's like a gallon jug right there. So awesome. Very cool. Thank you very much. Yeah, it'd be fun if you guys sent simultaneous sip pictures every day. That'd be great. This is an interactive show after all. Pony Boy says, Steve Millett is to me the funniest. I'm assuming that's Steve Miller.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so this is ICE director talking about specifically in Minnesota, but this is the problem with any and all of the sanctuary states, cities, counties, jurisdictions at large, is you're not helping it get better. You're making it worse. You're putting these illegals that should have detainer orders from ICE back out on the streets before we can get them, which is the reason why ICE is driving through your neighborhoods and not just making pickups at the back door of the local jail.
Right.
Boggles my mind is the fact that these law enforcement agencies have already deemed this person a public safety threat. You've already taken the actions and the steps to arrest and detain this individual. Why would you not want to turn them over to the federal authorities that could then handle that case to the next step? It absolutely makes no sense when they talk about sanctuary cities, protecting the public and protecting neighborhoods. How are you protecting the public if you re-release a felon back into society?
Yeah,
boggles my
that's
mind.
What's caused
tell me, please.
That's why they've had to surge 2,000 officers to Minneapolis, is because you're not just letting 20 officers go to the local jails and pick people up as they get arrested for DUI, petty theft, and petty assault. We wouldn't have to even talk about mass deportation if every single illegal immigrant, when they got detained for any reason, got a one-way flight out of the
Trump wouldn't get the flex.
Yeah, Trump wouldn't get the flex. So they're really shooting themselves in the foot right there. And here is our local Linwood. Okay, so this is Linwood City Council. That's just across the sound from us, just barely north of Seattle. And this is one of their local council members, and she's proposing some new, I don't know, legislation, some new codes for the city of Linwood.
I want to introduce a draft resolution this evening, and I want to be very clear at the outset that I am not making a motion and I am not requesting a vote tonight.
She's just getting the talking points out.
Bringing this forward because what we are seeing right now from federal immigration enforcement, particularly ICE, is not business as usual, and it demands a response grounded in our responsibility to uphold the rule of law and constitutional democracy at the local level. For me personally, this work was prompted by learning about the death of Renee Nicole Good, who was killed while peacefully observing federal immigration enforcement activity.
Okay, now we don't have to listen to anything else.
Okay, we can turn her off now. Peacefully observing. Bye-bye.
ICE operations across the country raised urgent concerns about federal agents operating without clear identification, engaging in aggressive tactics, detaining people without due process, and interfering with constitutionally protected activities. This is not simply about people observing law enforcement. This is about federal agencies acting outside accepted legal and democratic norms and being used as instruments of intimidation under an administration that has shown open hostility to protest, dissent, and constitutional limits on power. Regardless of political affiliation, the right to peacefully assemble, to observe law enforcement, and to protest government action is explicitly protected by the Constitution. When those rights are violated, or when law enforcement agencies act as though they are above accountability, local governments cannot afford to look the other way. This resolution that I have provided to each of you does three things. First, it makes it clear that Linwood stands for constitutional rights, nonviolent civic engagement, and the safety and dignity of all people in our community, and that we are deeply concerned by federal immigration enforcement practices that erode public trust and civil liberties. Second, it asks the mayor to direct the chief of police to ensure that Linwood officers are prepared, consistent with state law and their training, to intervene if they witness excessive force or unlawful conduct by other agencies operating within our city limits. Washington law is clear that officers have a duty to intervene regardless of the patch the other officer is wearing.
Does this not sound like the setup for a civil war right in our backyard?
Yeah.
Okay. So she's saying, declare Linwood's commitment to constitutional rights. Well, I'll just use one of your speakers about this free assembly. And we need to limit the first protection to save the first protection. It's the First Amendment, right? So let's just throw it right back. You're using my virtue and my belief in the Constitution and trying to uphold those principles in my daily walk of life. You're trying to weaponize my virtue against me. Right? You're trying to weaponize it against me by quoting the Constitution, when probably just yesterday you were over there saying we need to change the Constitution, or it's racist, or something else. You know what I mean? The mayor to instruct the chief of police to train and prepare Linwood officers to intervene in cases of excessive force. The mayor to direct the staff to research and propose an ordinance for council consideration focusing on law enforcement identification and accountability. They just don't want to enforce the law. They want to enforce the law selectively. This is a disaster.
Yeah.
And for many reasons, this is a game of chicken between the state and the local governments and the federal government, because Donald Trump has put down the gauntlet. Want to keep playing around? FAFO, you're going to find out.
We're giving 90-day notices to places like California, Scott. Right away, we're going to send out that notice. Who would bill the federal government as people poured into the state to send those people back, because no country can afford to do it. No country can afford to take in millions of people, pay for their education, their health care, their hospitals. You just can't do it. And we all have a heart. You can't do it. But many of those people are murderers. They're people released from jails, prisons, mental institutions, insane asylums. They're people that are drug dealers. They're addicts. Additionally, starting February 1st, we're not making any payments to sanctuary cities or states having sanctuary cities, because they do everything possible to protect criminals at the expense of American citizens, and it breeds fraud and crime and all of the other problems that come. So we're not making any payment to anybody that supports sanctuary cities.
What is that going to do?
I don't know, but thank you.
Huh?
I don't know, but thank you.
Well, thank you, but honestly,
hopefully it'll change people's. Hopefully, it'll change things.
How is Mondani going to pay for these free buses if the state of New York and the city of New York get cut off from all federal funds?
I wasn't even thinking about New York. I was thinking about my state.
Well, same here. I mean, how are we going to pay for these methadone clinics and stuff like that if the government's not?
We're not going to pay for them.
Huh?
We're not gonna.
Okay. Well, what about school? Because here's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to find this weird situation where Democrat politicians in Washington and the other states are going to try to tell you that you don't need that bridge to be fixed or repaired. What we really need to do is protect our 2- and 3-year-olds that need pre-K education. So let's take the money from transportation, infrastructure, electrical grid, all that. And let's
they already do this all the time.
All the time, right? All the time. That's what's going to happen here. And honestly, the budget shortfall will be legion, because even with government money, Washington, Oregon, a lot of these states don't run a balanced budget.
No, they don't know how to not spend money that they don't have.
Yeah, they're supposed to run a balanced budget, but they don't. They just shuffle the debt off to the federal government. But wow, that could be a big deal, because that forces, even down there at Linwood, you can't operate without a checkbook, and you can't raise enough taxes to administer the programs that you administer.
Well, they'll try.
not for long. Now, Governor Katie Hobbs down in Arizona who might be the most annoying voice of a governor I've ever heard. Probably only heard like 35 of the governors or so. She's probably got the most annoying voice, but she's got accusations that she met with a donor, and then that donor made a significant campaign contribution, and then they turned around and started billing the government a lot more, like up to 60% more for their services.
Ooh.
And it all points back to Katie Hobbs and her campaign manager.
I have followed every campaign finance law that there is. And even according to Stacey's own reporting, I had no conversation, no communication about the rate increase. And I have always, I'm a social worker, and this is a contractor with DCS, and my career has been about helping vulnerable children, vulnerable families. I am doing right by Arizonans, and this is just a distraction.
Stacey Barchenger's reporting did include a report about a meal you and your campaign manager attended with this gentleman, and I believe his spouse. Is that correct?
Yes.
Why would you do that with your campaign manager? It seems like an odd thing to do with a government contractor.
I've never talked to him about his government contract. He is a political supporter, and I often have socialized with supporters.
I'm a social worker. I take care of kids.
Hold on. She never talked to a supporter, but she socializes with supporters.
Yeah, I never talked to him. I socialized with him. Why'd you have a dinner with the campaign manager? Well, it wasn't about the contract they were going to get. That was just a given. Of course, I was going to let them trust their billing for the $400,000 donation. Right? Unbelievable, right? It's everywhere we look. And it's Democrats, it's Republicans, it's a target-rich environment. Stephen Miller was on with Laura Ingraham, and he talks about the judges we have, some of these federal district judges, and all the way down to our administrative courts. Some of these judges, aren't even American, they're foreign born, but many of them actually espouse communist political party affiliations. This is kind of a big deal.
Judges who are just genuinely diehard communists. A lot of them are also foreign-born communists. So you have foreign-born communists who were brought to this country who don't believe in our constitutional order, who were appointed to lifetime seats on the bench. So it's a major problem. But none of that is going to deter or stop the president of the United States. And he's given very clear directions, and they'll be implemented by Russ Vought, the head of the Office of Management and Budget. Look, we are not judges who
these judges that
just genuinely
try to legislate from the bench and try to be ideological actors from the bench. They pop up all over the place. Now, this judge in the James Comey indictment in the Eastern District of Virginia, Judge Novak. Now, I don't know if he's a foreigner. I don't know what his political affiliation is, but he wrote this opinion because he's going after Lindsay Halligan for not having an accurate title as a U.S. attorney, wasn't confirmed properly, blah, 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 which, by the way, is the exact same thing that Jack Smith did. Okay, so it's kind of like you can't have it both ways. You either allow these guys just to do what they're going to do, or you got to get down to the letter of the law. So this judge is trying to get down to the letter of the law with Lindsay Halligan on her appointment. But here's the problem. So here, the federal court, this is from the judge. He says, the federal courts, the effect of the district court ruling the nature of our adversarial system, compounding these legal errors, the court fails to correctly identify the date of the indictment in the case, a factual mistake that forecloses the premise of misconduct of which the court's inquiry is based. So, excuse me, this is Lindsay Halligan's response to the court. So the court eviscerated her, threw her off the case, said that she was an attorney when she wasn't, in fact, appropriately appointed at the time that she signed a document or something like that. And what ended up happening here was when they went to reply to this judge's scathing memorandum, says that error is dispositive. A signature blocks executed before Judge Curry's rulings cannot constitute defiance, noncompliance, or misrepresentation concerning orders that had not been issued. So basically, she just drafted a ruling, submitted it like you're supposed to. She was totally allowed to do that. And the judge got the date wrong, like literally misrepresented the date in his filing, excoriated her, and she's like, well, if you get the date wrong, the entire premise is void, right? Your all these thousands of words you wrote are nebulous and void because you got it wrong. Why would a judge do that with all the paralegals and all the tools you have available, especially with a case as high profile as James Comey? Why would you do that?
Is that like poison pill type thing just to kill it?
What it feels like, yes, because they dismissed the case. And now we're back here arguing about
because the judge got the date wrong.
They dismissed the case because Lindsay Halligan was not a duly authorized attorney. But the premise of that was based on a misreading or an error of a date that was incorrect. So she got fired, and now they're dealing with the fact that she got fired. And meanwhile, James Comey walks around a free man.
Oh, geez.
See what I'm saying? No issue with the evidence, no issue with the crime alleged, purely an issue of the legality of the attorney. Now, as a J6er, we had prosecutors that weren't even attorneys.
No, what you just described is exactly what I was afraid was going to happen. You know, that these guys are going to get off on technicalities, and then we're going to be left in the ashes trying to figure out where our butts are.
Yeah, and it's in the devil's in the details.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is it really a crime to commit fraud and steal from the American taxpayer if it says in the code that you can commit fraud and steal from the American taxpayer?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's kind of what's going on with a lot of these social services fraud. It's like, well, nothing in the code says kids actually had to attend. It just says kids have to be on the rolls.
Well, and you get that governor from Arizona. It's like, I didn't break any rules. It's like, I'll bet you didn't.
Yeah,
you still figured out how to get a whole bunch of money.
I'm a social worker.
Right.
That is what creates a huge challenge for us. So this Greenland thing, I just love this Greenland topic because it's one of those things like our great-great-grandkids, like we're going to be back there talking about, back when Donald Trump passed the big, beautiful bill. No, we're not going to tell that story. No. The story we're going to tell is when the map changed, right? We're going to look at a map someday and we're going to go, oh, it still says Greenland and not U.S. territory of Greenland or something.
Right.
Like
we can already get mileage out of the Gulf of America.
Yeah, we're getting, yeah, exactly. We can already look at any map and know if it was pre-2025.
Yes, exactly.
You know? So the United States needs Greenland for purposes of national security. It is vital for the Golden Dome that we are building. NATO should be leading the way for us to get it. If we don't, Russia or China will. And that is not going to happen militarily without the vast power of the United States, much of which I built during my first term, and am now bringing to a new, even higher level. NATO would not be an effective force or deterrent, not even close. They know that, and so do I. NATO becomes a far more formidable and effective with Greenland in the hands of the United States. Anything less than that is unacceptable. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump. Now, this is what is this guy's name here? Oh, this is Representative Randy Fine. So Representative Randy Fine has actually put legislation in place to help Donald Trump take Greenland any way he wants to.
She just released legislation that would make Greenland America's 51st state, an acquisition that President Trump has been pushing for. Tell us how you see this playing out, and why would the U.S. out and out be able to acquire Greenland?
Well, what my bill does, it creates the statutory framework to support President Trump as he tries to make Greenland part of the United States. The fact of the matter is Greenland sits between us and Russia. And so to put a strategic barrier between Russia's interests in the United States helps America, as well as the trade routes that have become more and more used by the Chinese and the Russians. The fact of the matter is Greenland will become part of some power. The question will it become part of America, or will it become part of Russia or China? We need to make sure that we assert our dominance over the Western Hemisphere, a Monroe Doctrine that goes back 200 years in this country. The last thing we need is Greenland to become another Venezuela, where we have huge problems we have to deal with in the future.
Well, it's a great point, and I suspect Marco Rubio is going to be making that point with the Greenland officials that he's meeting this week.
They definitely don't want Greenland to get into the drug business because there's a lot of snow to blow up there. You won't be able to tell one white powder from another. Is that testing in it as cocaine, or is that just straight snow? and then the blue ice up there. That's a problem because meth is blue and they call it ice.
Oh, so, no.
We got to go on a blue ice raid. Are we talking about glaciers? Who knows? Claudia Seinbaum down from Mexico. She gave a speech yesterday. Now, this is in Spanish, so you're probably going to want to mute it so I can read it.
All right.
But she says something that everybody's thinking. Las intervenciones.
Oh my God.
Subtitles. I could if I slowed it down. Okay. All right. So here's the highlight of what she said. Okay. The last time there was an intervention by the United States, she's referring to Mexico, we lost half of our territory. Don't get in the way of American manifest destiny. That's all I got to say. Yeah, I know. The last time America had an intervention with Mexico, the free territory of Utah, where my ancestors were trying to raise civilization out of the dust, got absorbed by the United States. We literally fled the United States. In Missouri, my family members had an extermination order from the state of Missouri. We had to leave as refugees the United States of America. A lot of people don't know this about Mormon history, right? But we fled the United States of America, which border was the Mississippi River at the time, went all the way over the Rockies. Not a small journey in 1840.
And people need to understand that they didn't go to Utah. Utah didn't exist. No. They went to the wilderness.
They went to the wilderness. Yes, they went to a large valley with nothing growing in it and a salt lake. Okay. Yeah. So, anyways, so then the United States came to us. So I sympathize with Shinebaum there. She's like, the last time America intervened, we lost half our territory. Well, America is definitely getting involved in Greenland. And yesterday, Denmark's premier gave a speech that was with the Denmark and Greenland, their little premiers or whatever their political figures gave speeches. And one of them said, well, if I have to choose between the United States and Denmark, I choose Denmark. Trump responded to this.
Greenland today, we prefer to stay with Denmark. Do you see that as the final word? The premier of Greenland.
Well, that's their problem. That's their problem. I disagree with him. I don't know who he is. Don't know anything about him. But that's going to be a big problem for him.
You want to see democracy?
Because when the United States intervenes, we take territory, especially in our hemisphere. I love it. Who is that? Well, that's going to be a problem.
I don't even know who that is.
We're getting Greenland, okay? The cars will be free, probably paid from a lithium mine in Greenland, right? With unlimited water supply. It's fascinating. Again, we will tell our great grandkids about when the map changed. You know, not only did we get Greenland, but Russia got Crimea. It was just, they reprinted all in the same year. Okay, so this is Trey Yanks, and he's talking about what's going on over in Iran. Again, there are weeks when decades happen, and there are decades when it feels like weeks happen. This entire 10-year period that we've had Donald Trump as one of the major political figures in America has felt like a century of stuff has happened. And probably in 4 or 5 years, as the AI boom sets in, these data centers get built, we've got Optimus robots doing our dishes, folding our laundry, and removing your gallbladder, right? We're probably going to look around and go, that was the most consequential 10-year period ever, because the entire trajectory shifted. We went from managed decline to explosive growth, right? Imagine having a country trims 1 or 2% off of the expenses and then raises the GDP to a solid 5 or 6%, add in the cuts, 7, 8, 9%. We could see unbelievable amounts of growth.
All of a sudden.
Now, with the growth usually comes the disparity in the polar ends of the economic spectrum. So the poor feel poorer because they don't have robots doing their dishes, and the rich feel richer because robots are doing everything for them.
Sure, but at least at that point, the poor will have opportunity to pull themselves out of the ashes.
Have opportunity to pull themselves out of the ashes, exactly, which is what's happening in Iran. The people have an opportunity to topple the regime. Now, stuff has been happening. There's been protests, and for a couple days those protests went on without any bloodshed, and then we started hearing reports of bloodshed. Now reports are up to about 12,000 people, protesters, may or may not have been slaughtered at this point.
Dana, good morning. New reports indicate at least 3,000 Iranians have been killed amid anti-government demonstrations. The confirmed number is expected to be much higher. Overnight, thousands of people gathered in the streets of major cities once again, including the capital of Tehran. Further south in the city of Isfahan, Fox News was able to make contact with a man who is using Starlink. He described battles between protesters and security forces who are using live ammunition. On the call, he said the government has really repressed them using weapons of war against the demonstrators. At the moment, the situation for the demonstrators in the street, the atmosphere is like a war zone, and some people are trying to escape from it. He goes on to say, I have to emphasize that among Iranian people, Trump is the most popular person right now. He has so much popularity because of the steps that he took toward preventing the growth of terrorism in the Middle East. They respect him. The internet blackout in Iran continues, making it difficult for people to get new information, although international calls were briefly going through overnight. The Americans, Israelis, and Europeans are watching these demonstrations closely, with German Chancellor weighing in today.
If a regime can only keep itself in power by force, then it's effectively at an end. I believe we are now seeing the final days and weeks of this regime. In any case, it has no legitimacy through elections in the population. The population is now rising up against this regime. I hope there is a possibility to end this conflict peacefully.
Amid the crackdown, there is growing fear among protesters. One man in Tehran messaged me overnight saying, "My days are numbered." Dana?
Trey Yings, please.
That's pretty intense over there. So I saw some camera footage and still pictures of body bags and stuff like that. You know, we lived through COVID. We saw body bags where people literally sat up and took a cigarette smoke in the middle of a CNN live. You know what I mean? Like literally, look at all the body bags right here out of the Central Park in New York. And then all of a sudden, you know, someone literally sat up out of a body bag and lit a cigarette. It's like, what are you showing me? This happened on live TV. Yeah. So when I'm seeing these images out of Iran and all these body bags,
it's hard to know.
I don't know, you know. But
you know, yesterday I was talking to my wife about this, actually, this whole Iran thing, and she pointed out some things and educated me. I'm really ignorant about the Middle East, and she pointed out that Iranians are not they're Persian.
Yeah, they're not Arab.
They're not Arab, but their government is basically run by and like an Islam backed.
They're Shiite.
Yeah, and she's like, the people are done with it. And then she also said, well, there's a lot of Iranians that are Christian. And I was like, really? I had no idea. And she's like, yeah, basically they're Persian. They're not down with Islam. They're tired of this oppressive government and they're done with it. And then she said, it's really sad that all these people are dying and I'm like, well, at the time yesterday, I think the confirmed number of people that died was only like 500. And I was like, well, in a country of when you have 500 reported deaths, it's not enough to really have critical mass where you can kind of have any sense of that's real or it's attributed to anything. Because, I mean, we can look at COVID and go, oh, thousands of people died. From what? Who knows? So it was hard to know really what's going on. But now here and also hearing that the government was cutting stuff like Starlink and trying to keep people from being able to talk outside of the country. But stuff is coming out and it sounds like they are taking over and they will be successful, but this is not going to end without bloodshed. And now that we're hearing that there's at least 3,000, possibly you mentioned even more people that have died from protesting, you know, we need to give these people some support.
And how do we do that?
I don't know. But let's talk about how America pushes America forward while we help people.
Yeah, help people. Democracy and oil out of the ground.
Right.
So, yes, Iranians are Persian in ethnicity. The rest of the world, the rest of that region of the world is Arab. Now, the Persians kind of have a mountain valley that they live inside of, and it's protected them for literally like 5,000 years. It's like impossible to invade Iran. It's the Switzerland of the Middle East, right? And so Iran, yes, as a culture has been preserved for a long time, and it's clearly Persian.
Well, on that note, it's 1974. This is something my wife also mentioned was 1974. You know, pre-1974, Libya was a great place. Or I'm sorry, Iran was like
up and coming. Yeah, it was the center.
Not just up and coming. They were there. I mean, they could probably compete with any of today's cities.
So the Shiite sect of Islam became very sectarian. It was kind of just like an afterthought thing. And the more extreme sect of Islam was Sunni. The difference between Shiite and Sunni in the Christian world would be like Catholic and Protestant. Okay. So yes, they're both Christian, but they kill each other.
Okay.
Like by the millions. You know what I mean? So like they kind of have some fundamental, and it has to do with the succession after Muhammad. I think this is correct. The Shiites follow Muhammad's brothers-in-law after he died, and the Sunnis follow his direct descendants or whoever he named as his successor. Something to that effect. My Al-Qaeda friend explained it to me. He was Sunni. He had no love for the Shiites. He didn't like Iranians. He was Pakistani. Okay. So, and the Persians have this phrase, they'll fight the West until the last Arab. Okay. So Shiite was not the extreme religion. The extreme side of Islam came out of Wahhabism, out of Saudi Arabia and stuff like that. But once the Ayatollah took over, the regime itself became repressive and started to basically itself pushed the extreme ends of Islam for the purpose of control.
And when Ayatollah took over, is that 74?
Yeah, I think.
Okay, because that's what my wife said. She's like, yeah, Jimmy Carter gave it to him. And I was like, what? Jimmy Carter?
Yeah.
He was like the only president that did all the good stuff, right?
He did nothing good. He gave Panama away. He got our hostages in Iran. It was a mess.
I know.
So,
but that's what I'm finding out is like the president that I thought had the least amount of trash attached to him has got all this stuff dripping off.
He's one of the worst presidents, man. He's also the president that gave me my Judge Lambert. so John Fetterman was talking. Okay, let me back up here. The Iran situation. Right. I honestly thought in the trajectory of my life that my kids would be the generation, like my generation went into Iraq and spent 20 years there in Afghanistan. I really believed my kids would spend 20 years in Iran.
I thought the same thing too.
Right. I just thought,
especially after hearing that Wesley Clark thing.
Yeah, there just didn't seem to be any way. But what has Trump done in the last 12 months? Venezuela, Maduro, Cuba's about to fall. Iran's about to fall, right? I mean, he's done such precise military intervention and pulled back. He's clearly not interested in nation building.
So what are we going to do with Iran?
I don't know. But if the regime falls, I guess they'll figure it out, right?
We're not going to swoop in and try to install democracy.
Yeah, John Fetterman was on with Fox News with Hannity, and he's saying that he's on the outs of his party because he's like, I mean, what's wrong with Iran falling? Didn't we want that like a year ago?
I mean, it's disappointing, honestly. I mean, I was fully supportive of Israel through that. And then that really kind of isolated me within my party now. And then I was calling, we have to destroy these nuclear facilities. If Iran acquires that nuclear bomb, that changes a much dramatic there. And now Iran's making these kinds of threat. I mean, remember also Israel, they created air supremacy within 2 days. Iran really's capabilities are severely limited at this point. And now they're in a death spiral with all these protests. Why wouldn't one be ready to provide the kind of a bump to push it, to finally break this regime? And now they're so desperate, they are quite literally just executing thousands of their own citizens.
Yeah. And you got to remember, they were on the brink of collapse before when Barack Obama loaded up a C-130 with pallets of cash and sent it over to them. So that seems to be the pattern. Every time the regime gets pushed to the end, a new deal with a tech company, a pallet of cash from Barack Obama, something to extend. I mean, even when Trump came in, Iran was pretty much starved out because Trump enforced the sanctions. And what did Biden do? He immediately came in and gave them cash and gave them relief. If they would just come back to the table and talk about negotiations for the bomb, right? Trump came in and just took it off the table. We're not even going to talk about the bomb. You're not even going to have the capacity to do it. Totally different. All right, guys, that's it for the public part of the show today. We're going to jump over to the private, and we are going to be talking about the transgender case that was heard at the Supreme Court yesterday. We're going to listen to the Supreme Court justices talk about that case, specifically boys and girls sports. We're going to talk a little bit about a huge Secret Service faux pas that happened, major security breach on J.D. Vance's detail. And we're going to hear about some conspiracy theories that RFK believes in. And then we'll head on out with a little video from Scott Adams. So we'll talk to you guys over in private.